Welcome to all of you. My name is William Stranger. I'm the Director of Symposia for the Laszlo Institute of New Paradigm Research, and I'd like to welcome you to our 3-day global online symposium on the new paradigm in politics. Just going to do a brief review of yesterday's work. We're on day 2 today, and when I'm done, I will introduce the leaders of the program today. We had 3 extraordinary panels yesterday, beginning with a situation report, basically on planet Earth, from Dr. Nafeez Ahmed. And he was complemented by Istvan Teplan, a review of the political situation, and Jeffrey Kripal, describing the transition that we Earthlings need to go through together to begin to incorporate in a non-conflictual, open-minded, future-oriented, non-tribalized way, the spiritual and sacred dimension into our practical affairs or our politics. That was followed by an extraordinary conversation between representatives of East, West, and science. First, of course, was Urban Laszlo, the founder of the Institute and one of the world's most eminent figures on the implications of the new science, physics, you could say, second generation quantum physics and the rest, for a new worldview. And we took a look at the fact that the ancient origins and situation of law and politics has always been in terms of a unified worldview. In the West, it's been called natural law, sometimes spoken of as sacred law. So we had a speaker, Fred Zhao from the East, director of a very large multinational conglomerate with deep family roots in Asia. From the West, Arthur Versluis, representing really the knowledge of the Western esoteric tradition, who has recently just been writing about its implication for politics, and of course, Dr. Laszlo himself. And after that deep discussion, which we basically looked at the idea of a higher vision of politics or a parapolitics or a sacred orientation to politics, the next panel, consisting of 4 speakers, again, all profoundly influenced by the spiritual thoughts of modern adepts such as Sri Aurobindo, went and told us about how their own activities in practical work, from everything from the UN to local education, has been able to translate this higher vision into very practical programs. And that was, of course, Gary Jacobs, Janani Ramanathan, and Jonathan Granoff, and Kurt Barnes. So that's all archived for you to see in the future after this. Today is a very different program. And the 2 people with whom who have designed it bring, I think, extraordinary and complementary gifts. Anneloes Smitsman is a visionary scientist who has a deep background not only in sustainability, but also in law. And she is a founder of the Earthwise Center. And she has been working with a very substantial group of people to craft in law this spiritual vision for a global or planetary community. And she's deeply involved in the process of translating, even the process of bringing that together in with groups of people. And that's what she is inviting us today with her colleague, Alexander Laszlo, who's owned complementary skills as one of the leaders really in the study of system science in the world. He's been president of the Bertalanffy Center for the Study of System Science, deeply involved in global education futures, which he's a founder of the organization, that name. And also another title that I think is worth noting, Chief Edunaut of the Evolutionary Learning Ecosystems Program. They're going to take us through a process today designed to prepare us for a collaborative effort tomorrow. I'll let Alexander and Anneloes take you from there, but thank you again so much for coming here, and we'll look forward to seeing you throughout. Alexander and Anneloes?
Thank you so much, Bill. And I'm just so delighted that we are back here again after an amazing day that you wonderfully recapped for us. What we did yesterday. I want to take a moment just to arrive. People are coming in right now into the room and people are arriving here. And I want us just to get a sense of being here. So what I'm going to ask us to do, if you wouldn't mind, Sam, if you can remove the spotlights, we see the gallery view and we get to see everyone here. And if you are coming and you feel comfortable and you can turn on your video, let's say you have it off, just so we get a sense. Right now we have up to 82 people already here are joining, and we had about 150 yesterday. So just look around and see all the people in the gallery view and imagine that you are arriving here. this is amazing to be here. What does it even mean that we are here and that we are together? Because we are together and we are here. But for example, Anneloes is, and Anneloes is waving because she's over there. We get to see where she is. There she is. Anneloes is waving, and she is in Mauritius, near Port Louis. I'm in Buenos Aires, Argentina. And yet we are all here. Let's do one little experiment of connection here. So imagine that we are here together, because we are, and imagine that we can actually give each other a high five, not to the camera, but to the sides of your screen. Put your hands up to the side of your screen, like on the very side, reach across to the edge of your screens, and look at that. We're touching each other's hands across our Zoom room engagement. I can see everybody's, it's like you're touching each other's hands across here. We are connected. Well, thank you very much for that. So with this, now maybe we can return the spotlight. Thank you so much, Sam, who's running our tech support here. Thank you so much, Sam Harper. I'm also going to ask if maybe in the chat, people can just sign in and say where they're from. So I'll start. I put hola desde Buenos Aires. I put Buenos Aires. It should be Buenos Aires. Sorry, Argentina. And maybe people could just share in the chat where you are connecting from. And I want to take where are we with time? Oh, we're a little over. Okay, I'll take 1 minute because I do want to do a room reset for what the Laszlo Institute of New Paradigm Research is doing and why we're having this symposium. The Laszlo Institute is dedicated to exploring the frontiers of science, particularly understanding those very large dimensions of the universe where we see levels of coherence and interconnectedness, patterns of coherence that speak to a real unified co-emergence of evolutionary pattern in the universe. And at the very micro level in quantum physics, we're also seeing these levels of co-arising, co-emergence, what they talk about as entanglement. If we get these patterns at the very large and at the very small, what does it mean for our level, at the meso level, not just the micro and the macro? What does it mean? And what would it mean if we take these orientations to understand our fundamental interconnectedness, not what the old paradigm science said, that we're all separate, isolated, and everything is a random flow of emergence, but truly that things co-arise in a holographic universe where things are really fundamentally interconnected in subtle domains, which also connects as another aspect of the Laszlo Institute exploration with the perennial wisdom traditions from spiritual engagements, spiritual traditions that affirm these levels of oneness. This symposium explores what it would mean to take those orientations, those insights from science and spirituality to inform our politics, such that what we are doing in the world no longer is as if we were separated, because we truly are not, and we truly are co-arising. So that's a really short connection to what the Laszlo Institute is about and what we're seeking to do. And in this moment, bringing the exploration of science, the frontiers of the study of this interconnectedness into relevant application in the domain of politics and self-governance. So with that, I'm going to share over to Anneloes, my co-facilitator for the day today. Hi, Anneloes.
Hello, Alexander, and welcome everyone here from around the world. It's really wonderful that you've come. Everyone is at different times. For us, it's the evening. For many of you, it's also the morning or during the day. I think that's beautiful. And just building on what Alexander was sharing about new paradigm, it's where we understand the paradigm, paradigma, meaning pattern. Let's also really explore what are really the patterns that we want to be co-create, that we want to weave our world together with. It's beautiful to know that unity and oneness is given, but what are we going to be doing with what is given? And that is really the call, the call of time, not just the call of the century. And this is the critical call of life right now. What are you going to be doing with what has been given? And how are you going to apply that in the design, in the redesign, in the transformation of our society, and to really review and undo the harmful dynamics of the human-made systems that are not co-coherent with life itself. So we'll be exploring that. You've probably seen that the topic for the first session is about igniting a sacred democracy in a secular era. We can also hold that as, what does it mean to really come into a form of governance that holds life as sacred? So what would happen if life comes the center of our practice, life becomes the focal focus, but also the commitment of the commons. It's really what's going to inspire us, and that we understand that as Alexander was saying, as life is a unified reality, how do we apply that now in the way that we are with each other, in the way that we also look after the future generations? And that's why today with the panel that we have here, it's the exceptional people, because I'm going to introduce them shortly to you. They've all been living these questions in their own ways. They're all pioneers in their own ways. And most importantly, I mean, I know them all personally, is that it's for them not a theoretical exploration, a new paradigm in politics, a new paradigm in governance, a new paradigm for how we co-create civilizations. I mean, just let that sink in, that we are now having this opportunity to consciously co-create the foundations for whole new civilizations, rather than letting history tell us afterwards the civilization that we were part of. So that's extraordinary. So let me just share with you a little bit more about our panel. The full biography, of course, is always on the website. But let's start with my dear friend, Jean Houston. And I just want to presence already, we just published our book, The Future Humans Trilogy, and the first book, The Crest of Rose, and she will be sharing a little bit during her contribution. So Jean, wow, she is really a living legend in her own time. I've had the fortune to work with her for the last year and a half, every single day. And she's just extraordinary in the way that the depth of compassion and commitment that she has for igniting the possible humans for a possible world. She's a world-renowned scholar, futurist, researcher in human capacity, social change, systemic transformation, one of the principal founders of the Human Potential Movement, and truly one of the foremost visionary thinkers and doers of our time. When Jane says it's got to get done, it's gonna get done. And she's been saying it's time, we need to have a different kind of civilization, a whole different kind of governance. So trust me, when she says it's got to be done, it's got to be done. And that brings me then to Yusuf Mahmud, also an incredible pioneer and path maker of peace, who works as a senior advisor at the International Peace Institute and former UN Under Secretary General. He's headed peace operations in Burundi, the Central African Republic, and Chad. And most of all, he is a man who really understands the importance of creating the right forms of governance that do not alienate people, that do not disconnect us from our planet and from everything that's important in life. And that brings me then to Alexander Schiffer, who is an incredible transformative educator, activist, integral philosopher, spiritual poet, and co-founder of Home for Humanity, as well as Trans4M Academy for Integral Transformation. And also has been living these questions for a very, very long time, and has dedicated his entire life to be the integral systems. And his beautiful wife and partner in every aspect that we can imagine, Rama, who is a transformative leader, educator, peace builder, poet, performance artist, whose life, work, and art are devoted to human and global transformation. And with Alexander, she is the co-founder of the Home for Humanity and the founder of the Theatre of Transformation Academy, and has such an in-depth understanding of what it means to do this in an integral way, to really be inclusive of everyone. And so she's living that larger humanity in her heart, in her practice every day. And so together we are going to be this morning exploring how do we ignite and that shift towards life-centered governance as an Earth Agora. And Jean, that brings me then to you. I'd love to see if you can come on camera with me. There you are. And with Margaret Mead behind her. I mean, it's legendary. So Jane, would be so honored if you could really help us come into the right state of consciousness, a state of consciousness that carries that new paradigm, as you do so well, and really, invoke the presence of all of that. Thank you, Jane.
Thank you so much, Anneloes. Well, we live clearly, dear friends, in the time of the change of eras. At the end of one time, not quite at the beginning of the new one. I believe that this conference is actually an activation of the new time. And this fact that we are in a new time has been the focus of our new book with myself and Anneloes, where we explore the very foundations for becoming the future humans of a new civilization. So to begin this session, I'd like to read this invocation from our book. Elect yourself. Rise up from the graveyards and terror of those 1,000 years of suffering, slavery, violence. Become the required human for a new story, a new time, where we stand united in the great circle of life. Oh, friends, the count is on us. Remember who you are, why we're here. Shake off those blankets of forgetfulness. You know your truth. You do. You know who you are. Ignite your passion with the flame of love that was kept alive by Nelson Mandela, Mahatma Gandhi, Martin Luther King, Mother Teresa, Joan of Arc, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, Malala Yousafzai, and all those who fought and are fighting for our liberation and the healing of our world. You know, this is the same flame that lives inside your heart. And with this flame, ignite your moral passion for doing what is right, not what is easy and expected. Love liberates. Ignite the healing of our world. Divest from the currency as of greed and separation. Unplug the fuel of hatred and violence and invest in our future with the currencies of justice, truth, and compassion. Put care first, not money first. In this world, there is no place for the old story of prey and predator, winners and losers. In this new time, we stand for everyone together. We are the future humans. We are the architects of a world that wakes and works for all of us, a world of plenty, beauty, and care, a world we call home. Together, we will transform the old sick systems. Together, we will change our story in favor of life. This is your moment of choice. This is your moment of choice. You hold the power, friends. You make the difference. And with this life-given power, elect yourself now for this new world and this new emerging story. This is the new hero and heroine's journey, where men, women, children, and earth walk together hand in hand with the cosmos and with the circle of life. Take your place now as this world comes alive in you as the future humans of a whole new time.
Thank you so much, Jean. And I think I speak for everyone here when I say these words, so inspirationally delivered and so inspirationally written in this fabulous book that you and Anneloes have put together that we've seen about. is so appropriate for our staging of and our exploration of the concepts and the questions and the conversation for action that you are calling us to move into. I would like to turn now to Yusuf Mahmud. And Youssef, I'm wondering, listening to this stage setting, this inspirational frame, it makes me feel and makes me think about how we can think in terms of the positive risk of leaning into the kind of world that Jean has described, that Jean and Anneloes have written about. What are the positive risks of being able to become those future humans and to be involved in this, creating this possible world that Jean also writes in other places? You, having been Undersecretary General of the United Nations and having worked on the ground and knowing really what it involved in attempting to bring forward new ways of being in the world, what can you share with us?
Thank you, Alexander. At the outset, I wish to inform you that I am on record that I dread speaking after Jean Houston.
Oh.
She is awesome, isn't she? I'm going to ask peace to come to my aid in my attempt to answer your question, Alexander. As an unlettered peace practitioner, I need her help. Let me explain. During the research phase of my recent book, I came across an obscure volume entitled The Complaint of Peace, written by a Dutch philosopher and Christian scholar by the name of Desiderius Erasmus. Erasmus lived in the late 15th to early 16th century, a time when every European nation managed to go to war with another European nation. As is commonly known, these were infamously called the 30-Year Wars. In the Erasmus book, Peace, speaking in her own name, laments the calamities these wars have visited on humans, sometimes in her name. She could not fathom why common mortals endowed with the powers of reason could not emulate other living beings who, despite their differences, found ways to coexist and live in harmony with each other and with nature. Deeply hurt by the unmerited indignities heaped on her, Peace shunned the world and decided to retreat, bemoaning the misfortunes of mankind without her. There is more to the book than this imperfect sketch would suggest. Suffice it to say that this book has had profound impact on me. It made me wonder, what would I say to Peace if I were to encounter her now, 5 centuries later, about the human race's inveterate inability to save successive generations from the scourge of war? Would she be satisfied if I were to triumphantly inform her that the United Nations has prevented a third world war, knowing fully well that we are living in a time when deterrence and organized violence, not diplomacy, seem to be the new norm? A time when in many corners of the globe, the earth has been scarred beyond recognition, and she too was about to take leave. So I finally summoned the courage and asked her, what would it take to lure her back so it can lend a hand to ongoing efforts of a growing, awakened movement of earth and peace entrepreneurs trying to build a regenerative future on the ashes of a decaying human system that had left no room for her. To egg her on, I shared with her recent positive advances in scholarship conducted in her name and pointed to the number of societies who managed to remain oases of peace despite internal contradictions and external pressures. I further indicated that the United Nations, ununited on matters of international peace and security, has been promoting a sacred alliance between peace and nature, by adopting the Paris Climate Accord and the 2030 Agenda on Sustainable Development. Sensing that she was losing patience with me, I urged her again to offer some advice at what needs to be done to bring her back from retirement. She grudgingly offered the following pieces of advice, not in any particular order, which I would share them with you, Alexander, as partial response to your excellent question. On the conceptual front, she said, we should stop tying her fortunes with the presence or to the presence or absence of violent conflict. We should abandon the linear thinking that if we understood the pathology of war and address the root causes of violence, peace would ensue. All that is achieved from such an effort is a modicum of short-lived stability that is highly reversible. She pointed to the situation prevailing in Iraq and Afghanistan to illustrate her point. A victor's peace, she intoned, is no peace. Peace is a dynamic and complex process of becoming, rather than an externally driven end state. Like a tree, it grows from the bottom up. To thrive, it needs to be nurtured from the inside out. It does not survive when the governance core is rotten. Peace thrives when there are inclusive, transparent, and accountable systems that enable people to meet their basic human needs and dignity, relate to others without fear, and prosper within the natural boundaries of other living systems. Peace should be treated as a common public good, permeating all spheres of life. It needs to be made a deliberate policy objective of any state and should be treated a meta-policy that builds on and accounts for all other policies. The mandate to sustain peace should be housed at the apex of national and local government structures, coordinated where relevant by an empowered Ministry of Peace. Then she went on to say, the binary relationship ascribed to conflict and peace means that society where there is no violent conflict tends to be excluded from the study and the celebration of peace, when in fact there can be case studies most likely to unveil the factors associated with building and sustaining peace. Given that peace is both an enabler and outcome of the Earth Agora, she recommends the organization of a global symposium of peaceful nations in the margins of the next Agora. Peace entrepreneurs of all ages and gender will gather to share their society's relative success in promoting peace at home and abroad, and identify the leadership, governance, and integral development opportunities that the next and current generation of change could seize to further global peace. And as a parting advice, she said that for all the above to materialize, every effort should be made to unleash the feminine leadership potential of women. They know how to harness the knowledge and wisdom from all the four corners of all traditions to help a decaying system die peacefully and take action on behalf of the emerging future. To drive her point home, she drew from a famous allegory. She remarked that for centuries, the humanity bird has been flying with one wing, the masculine wing, with the feminine wing truncated, nearing atrophy. In order to keep flying, the masculine wing has become overdeveloped, overmuscular, and now violent. As a result of this imbalance, the bird is flying in circles and may end crashing, bringing humankind down with it. An enlightened and life-centered governance system would want to prevent such a disastrous outcome by taking corrective measures, including through constitutional provisions that would enable the feminine wing of the bird of humanity to gain back its strength, allowing the masculine wing to relax and perhaps develop its own inner feminist qualities. Both women and men are needed to author the future. I have taken her advice to heart. It has thus far stood me in good stead as I make my way towards becoming a good future ancestor with the help of young transformative pioneers. I thank you.
Thank you so much for this incredibly powerful message. And I'd love to bring that to Alexander Schiffer and Rama Mani. If you can both come on and build on this beautiful, beautiful message from both Jean and from Youssef, and share about your vision of the Earth Agora and of course the Charter for Humanity as well. I understand you have a video you like to share. You just let our technician know and he will bring that on. Over to you.
Thank you. Hearing this extraordinary opening after the introduction of why this symposium, why you both, Alexander, Laszlo, and Anneloes, came together to design this particular day, bridging from yesterday and moving the symposium on to tomorrow under this title. And why, when we read the white paper of Erwin Laszlo and the intention of this session, we immediately conceived of it as an Earth Agora. Of course, Jean has been teaching the importance of the concept of the Agora, the need for a politeia, a radically inclusive, creative politics where everyone is included and brings forth their greatest expressions. And as she shared in the invocation of your extraordinary book, Anneloes and Jean, which was just launched day before yesterday, and how Youssef grounded it in the reality of what's really happening, but called upon peace herself to come to the table to guide us forward, just as Erasmus did those many years ago. So you can understand why for us the Earth Agora is so important, and why indeed we have drawn on the wisdom of Jean and Youssef to be the co-chairs of the Earth Agora as we see it, drawing on our decades of integral practice, dedicated to understanding, as you were doing in your book, Jean and Anneloes, what will it take now that we know what we know, now that whether we turn to science or to ancient wisdom, we can no longer deny where we are headed and where we might be headed if we don't do what we must consciously do now. That's why the Earth Agora, and we want to share a couple of the principles and foundations upon which we base it, and to also share where we are. We are in what we call the home for humanity. And we are simply one center point. We are a node. We are what we call the integral home campus of what is a vision, but also a reality of individual homes, of organizations that started from simple homes or garages, from huge organizations that work integrally and treat their teams, their communities as a home, as members of a family. Because all together, we believe the only way forward, as the white paper said, is if we recognize that the earth is our shared and sacred home. And that is the only way forward towards a sacred democracy. If every individual, wherever they are in their home, in a time of such homelessness, so many refugees, and we'll mention in a moment why that's so significant right now, can feel the sense of being at home, being fully at home, and creating this together. So we are here actually preparing for a physical Agora, so the beauty of having an online Agora with all of you across the world, and then an Agora here, and we are surrounded by about 10 members of our intimate Home for Humanity collaborators, transformers, and preparing for this Agora tomorrow, and you will be hearing their voices later on.
So welcome friends, to the Earth Agora, and while Rama began to describe it, we are all together already in the middle of it. And while you may say, Youssef, it's difficult to come after Dean, and we would say it's difficult to come after marvelous Jean and marvelous Youssef, in a way, it's not so much only to coming one after the other, but it's about entering the space of the Agora to weave new realities. So why the Agora? Why evoking the ancient Greek tradition of coming together in places to engage with, to practice, and to innovate the future? And exactly that is what we feel we need ever more, that we come together in new ways as human beings with all life forms, as the different cultures on our planets working together towards building a true choir of cultures to benefit the great song of the earth. And this is why we were entering this space and following also Jean's advice that we do need a global community of practice to reinvent the future. And we feel, and that's why we call you, and Rama evoked purposefully, the home as a physical space, but also as a metaphor, coming together fully in our inner homes, in the homes in which we live, because as a basic unit to restore our communities and societies, and also as a leverage of power that almost each one of us holds in whatever simple or elaborate and sophisticated shape to participate in building what we like to call Earth citizenship, the ultimate goal of why the Agora is coming together. And we are coming together, and here just a couple of words, bringing integral into shape. We are coming together in our full humanity. We are building and standing on the wisdom and roots of nature, our mother. We are evoking the powers of our cultures and the wisdom we are holding and the wisdom we are building. We are weaving it together into new educational and scientific perspectives and systems, and ultimately we affect systems change. And that is the journey of the Agora, why we come together. A process of building Earth citizenship, and as such, also a process for igniting every day anew a sacred democracy, a sacred form of governance on planet Earth. So we continue now the practice of the Earth Agora in this sacred hour we are having together. And we would like to invite the short video, which is called the Humanity Charter, which is developed by thousands of agents of transformation from all cultures. But before we show the video, we would like to invite the Tibetan peace activist and freedom activist Loten Namling, who is sitting right behind us, just to evoke the Humanity Charter with a short blessing and a sacred sound.
Yes, because as Jean would remind us, if we happen to forget, which we couldn't, that we cannot create the future without sacred artistry. And so the Earth Agora is always, it opens with opening up all of our senses through sacred sound, and it is punctuated throughout with each of our creative expressions and with sacred artistry. So we ask Loten, freedom activist, sacred musician, to blow his conch and give us a blessing for this Earth Agora and to this entire symposium.
Tashidelek, in Tibetan we say Tashidelek, and I just want to recite this wonderful prayer of His Holiness the Dalai Lama. He always recited this, or recites this prayer. May the bodhicitta mind, the compassionate mind, grow in all those people who do not have that compassionate mind. And those who have made the compassionate mind grow even further. And so I always believe that meeting you all here, we have met each other now a couple of years, and has been a very interesting, also really kind of wonderful moment. And so I'm going to blow you this conch shell. And we Tibetans believe that this is the first instrument on this planet. So I'm going to blow this, and when we blow this, we receive all the spirits, the good spirits, to protect this wonderful planet and what all of you are doing. I hope this conch shell will bring a lot of good luck and success in your project. I'll blow it 3 times, and that's important.
Thank you so much. And we hope later when we open up the floor, we will hear your inputs on sacred democracy, which has been what you've given your life for. Indeed, the Earth Agora, as we go into the Humanity Charter, which serves as a foundation, is designed building on the inspiration of the Agora in Greece, where unfortunately slaves and women were excluded. But here, what would it be if we brought all of our humanity in unity with all of life? We called upon all of the beings, the spirits, nature forces to support us. And thereby we called forth the highest within ourselves individually, as well as our collective intelligence, our collective consciousness, our collective creativity, and also our collective wisdom. And in that spirit, we offer you the Earth Charter as we go into this integral process of imagining what sacred democracy could look like for an Earth civilization that is just, regenerative, and inclusive of all life. And this film was made by Eda Elif Tibet, Dr. Eda Elif Tibet.
This is exactly the kind of medicine that we are in such need of. This is the transformative medicine of our times. So I'm hoping that everyone here senses and feels that they are part of this co-creative experience from this wonderful, amazing Rama and Alexander, and inspirational Youssef, which you've shared with us. And now I would like to invite back to the stage Jean Houston to maybe, Jean, if you could share with us a little bit of your experience in your interaction with Eleanor Roosevelt. I seem to understand that you had some really interesting conversations with her about what it means perhaps to be a future ancestor or to create the possible human.
Well, thank you so much. Indeed, I did know Mrs. Roosevelt. It was 1954. I was president of the student body of Julia Richmond High School in New York. Mrs. Roosevelt lived about 7 blocks away, and she had taken to visiting high schools and activating the student leaders to think in a new way. She came to our school and she spoke about how important it was to be involved in some way with the United Nations, some way, and that the great task of our time was making human rights matter. And she spoke to us of our lives, that the greater purposes that we had in this time for making a better world. Now, this is 1954, and she said, "You're living in the most important time in human history, and what you do will profoundly make a difference as to whether we grow or whether we die." And she spoke to us of our lives, that the greater purpose that we had for making a better self in order to make a better world. And then she spoke to us individually, and with words that I could only describe as wands, words that were wands, and with a pungent language that sparked our spirits as she called forth a new sense of purpose for our lives. And she said, we have to face the fact that either all of us are going to die together or we're going to learn to live together. And if we were going to live together, we have to talk. Again, the most important time in human history. And she said, what you don't do can be a destructive force. And she asked us to consider a career working in some way with the United Nations, which subsequently I did. And that sometimes, well, she warned us that the work would be very, very hard and often thankless. And sometimes we would wonder if it was even worth the effort. But that when we whined, as we did, and we said, we didn't like the idea of being unappreciated, she said, no one can make you feel inferior without your consent. And then she would add, when will our consciousness grow so tender that we will act to prevent human misery rather than avenge it? One day she turned to me, because I had subsequent meetings with her, and she said, and I will try to imitate what she sounded like. She said, my dear, I rather suspect that you're going to have a most interesting career. But remember, my dear, that is a woman who is trying to make a difference with great and good work. You can expect to be trashed. She didn't exactly use the word trashed. It was something like that. And that she also said, remember that a woman is just like a tea bag. You put her in hot water and she just gets stronger, which turned out to be very true. You remember that as a member of the United States delegation to the United Nations, the General Assembly, thanks to her steely, unstoppable determination, she got the United Nations General Assembly to adopt something that she helped create, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And then throughout the 1950s, as the thick fog of conservatism settled over the United States, she became a strong voice for liberalism. She supported equal rights, equal pay for women, national insurance, and deplored the new brand of anti-communist paranoia whipped up by Joe McCarthy and the House of Un-American Activities. And she insisted that fear was the greatest enemy of all, and warned against governments that preyed on terror in order to subdue the least protest among their own citizens. And she said, I'll never forget, she said, surely we cannot be so stupid as to let ourselves become shackled by senseless fears. And for the leading democracy in the world to indulge them is a very great danger, not to us, but to the whole world. Well, in knowing her as I did, I have to say she embodied the qualities that I think they're the qualities of the possible human who can help create the possible world. And that was Eleanor Roosevelt, as I knew her.
Wow. Jean, I just thank you so much. I just always love it, how you share the most profound wisdoms and teachings in real life context, which is just so incredibly important. And also what you just shared, that what you don't do can become a destructive force. And that is just so important. And that brings me to Youssef. I would like to ask you also to share some very brief closing thoughts that you have.
Again, I'm speechless after listening to my good friend Jean. When I was in Burundi, we went around asking people, what is peace for you? And they basically said three things. The first one is to have a roof over one's head that does not leak. Speaking of home for humanity. Second is to go to the field, to school, to visit a neighbor without being killed, robbed, or raped. And the third one is to give us a government that does not silence our voice. And that has, despite the restrictive mandate that I've had, really served as a guiding light. And Burundi, unfortunately, is in dire straits simply because they silenced those voices, the citizens' voices. My country is surviving because they threw a government, they threw out a regime and regained the sacred governance privilege, which is the freedom of expression and the freedom of assembly, that enabled my country to get to the edge of the precipice but not fall. Pull back always at the right moment. And speaking of women, they're often in my tongue. It is thanks to the leadership of women that we have developed this resilience that keeps us alive despite COVID and the multiple social and economic ills that are afflicting us. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Youssef. These are the things to not only keep in mind, but to bear in heart. so that we can actually learn how to be those possible humans that Jean has talked about. This is the ways for us to human well. That's what I like exploring. How do we human well together? Maybe I could ask Rama and Alexander to share their closing poem, if you have that on hand. And then Anneloes and I will say a few comments and we'll move to the question and answer period.
Thanks for asking for a closing poem, because this is about how the heart and the art, which is in the center of the heart, can serve the earth. And I want to just, in response to the question, say, for us, unity, very much in line with the white paper, is about the interconnected wholeness of existence, which science and spirituality both point towards. So this world, this sacred democracy, this earth civilization, this what I call our utopia, this world we envision stirs in our womb, itches under our feet, and bursts with crystalline clarity from our lips. This is no utopia or fairyland. We feel it, we touch it, we hear it, we smell it. We want it as our children's birthright. The only sensible way forward is to listen to our heartbeat, to heed the call of spirit, the wisdom of the ancients, the pulse of the nascent that beats steadily in our veins. We are here to co-create our utopia, an earth civilization for all life, and nothing can stop us.
Let us, friends, ignite a sacred democracy. The poem you're going to hear is a participatory one. It's created in this very moment. Friends, join the Agora and join the chorus. We are igniting a sacred democracy. Join the Agora. It's the call of the time, the critical call of life. We are birthing a new paradigm. Join the Agora. Elect yourself. Become the future human that is waiting to be born. Already was known to Erasmus from Rotterdam. But how do we lure the earth back? Join the Agora. Peace is a dynamic and complex process of becoming a better self for a better world. Yes, but join the Agora. Build a home on earth, a home that roof does not leak. Join the Agora. Every effort should be made to unleash the transformative power of women who need to join and lead the Agora. Love liberates. Join the Agora. And let the bird of humanity fly once again with two wings. Now, join the
Agora.
Wow, join the Agora. Yes, we have joined. We have joined. Oh, this is amazing. And I love how you've woven that together so spontaneously on the spot. It's just incredible. This is for me, and I think that Alexander Laszlo joins me in this, a true demonstration of the kind of new paradigm consciousness we need to be embodying and sharing and creating from. And before we go into the Q&A, I would like to ask all of you to share in one word, if you need 2 words, okay, take 2, but in one word, what's alive in you right now in your heart, and just please write it in the chat so we can experience that from each other, and it gives me also a voice right now, all of you in this place. Alexander.
Yeah, you know, I mean, this is sacred space, and this is sacred time. And what is amazing for me here is that this can be normal. This can be us here, now, all the time, finding each other, interconnecting, co-emerging and co-creating. Well, this, so far, we have done today is just blowing me away. Of course, we have some amazing people who have been sharing with us and bringing us forward. It reminds me of this little saying from Hafiz, that 14th century Persian poet, who declared, I am the hole on the flute through which God's breath blows. I am the hole on the flute through which the universe expresses. And this is what we are doing here. We are being flowed by each other. We are creating the containers, the fields that we are interacting with. This helps emerge the kind of realities that we are talking about here, but it actually is an act of co-creation. So I don't want to say more about this because we are simply doing this. It's very inspirational to me. I thank everyone who's participating in this, of course, because all of you who are listening as well are co-creating this by participating and being here. Absolutely. This is the Agora. So we are going to continue now. I'm going to bring up a few questions for the panel. We are continuing to capture the questions. So in between your words and unconditional love, thank you, Connie, we can also continue to capture the questions that we will share with you now. So before we do that, let's just take a moment to express our thanks to Jean Houston, Alexander and Rama, and to Youssef. Just here, your hands up and waving. Let's see if we can get everybody back on the screen here for a moment, Sam. Just so we can all be here and see the gratitude of all of us here in the room. Thank you so much, because we are the ones that we have been waiting for, as they say. All right, let me go with a few questions that we have been capturing now for the panel. So one question comes from Susan Taylor, who wrote, it's a two-part question, so let me read both parts here. She says, how can so many people on the planet who don't have survival handled be participants in this new world? And she also goes on to say, wouldn't bringing people up from poverty be a first step? The have-nots, where the rich get richer and the poor get poorer, are more likely to produce revolution than enlightenment. I open this to Alexander, Rama, Jean, and Youssef, please.
As some of you know, I have worked in many countries and have also worked with people who are, sadly, as you describe. And everything that you suggest is true. But also what I have found, and nobody speaks of this, that often you have a community of those who are suffering, but also loving each other and holding on to life. And what I find is that together they seem to enter into another order of consciousness. That's the only way I can say it. We in the West always think in terms of they're not eating and therefore they're not living and therefore they're not, and that isn't in some cases that's true, but in many cases it is not. And I have sometimes found the deepest understanding, the richest knowings of what can begin to not just work, but there's a larger word for it, thrive. They don't think just in terms of working as we do in the West. They think in thrivability. And some of the deepest and most potent testaments of possibility with very real, hands-on, sensory-rich ideas comes from these people. That has been my experience.
Maybe if you would allow me.
Please, Youssef, go ahead.
To come in. There have been so many prescriptions to address the problems that were just shared with us. From my experience, we need to approach whatever we do to help the voiceless and prioritize poverty eradication. We should do it with humility.
Yes.
And acknowledge that people in these difficult circumstances are not blank pages and they are not projects.
Here we go.
That every human being, however devastated, has developed human resilience that should be tapped. And they may, and they do have capacities and assets, not just needs and vulnerability.
Yes, wonderful, wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Going straight on and building on that wave on this very important question. Do you want to start first, Alexander?
Oh, I always follow you, Rama.
No, not at all. Okay. First, just so deeply reiterating what Jean said, and all of us who have worked with people in situations of crisis know they are our teachers. What I do in my, what I've been inspired to do in the last 10 years after working for 30 years in peace, in situations of conflict and genocide, and in global governance, is simply give voice to those stories, because I've learned from them how when everything breaks down, they're not sitting there with begging bowls. No, they are creating the very systems that inspired you, Alexander and Anneloes, to design this conference. They are creating those new paradigms. The paradigms are out there, the alternative systems, the sacred democracy that exists between people who are not waiting with a begging bowl, but are actually continuing to live and thrive between the bombs, in the fires, in these places, waiting for us to take notice, not waiting for us to take notice, but hoping that we will take notice. And those are the stories that we are trying to share and spread and say, they can do it, we can. That's the first part. And I think the second part is, as long as we think of the world of simply helping out those who are in need, it's not going to change. And I think that's why your whole concept of the new paradigm is so important. Are we coming from a paradigm of the wholeness of life, of a paradigm of abundance for all, or are we coming from a paradigm of scarcity and feeling we need to fix things? Are we coming from a paradigm of simply reforming, tweaking a little so poverty is now 50% instead of 75% or 25%? Or are we visualizing a world where there is no poverty, where everyone is seated around the same tree, not the same table, but the same tree, and co-creating the world we want to live in, being the full future human? And this ancient saying, yad bhavam tad bhavati, as we envision, as we intend, as we wish and think, so is reality, which has been reiterated by quantum scientists. This is how we need to be, that if we are constantly just trying to fix what's wrong, which is what I did for much of my life, working with and around the UN system and with activists around the world, that's only half the job. The real job is what you, Jean and Anneloes, have done, creating that future, the new systems based on the wisdom and intelligence of people who have lost everything, are in poverty, but are so rich, as one of our participants said, in spirit and in wholeness.
Yeah, it looks like, if I may add a couple of words to this powerful question. Thank you for that, because I guess we are all here on this call concerned with the level of poverty and misery that we are seeing on the planet. And yet, of course, this is a phenomenon which we share. Perhaps not all of us on a material level, but the world is in profound poverty of spirit. And however, in a co-evolutionary process where we begin to see the other not as poor, but in a whole person perspective, and also in a whole culture perspective, we can find and develop processes to ignite, to use a term of the title today, to ignite processes of being in spirit to build up. And this for me is never this we versus them, or we need to lift others, which I guess no one here feels, but it's really the crafting of new co-evolutionary processes in which we jointly grow to a higher level. I want to bring an example in closing. We just a few months ago launched in the middle of rural Zimbabwe, in the most downtrodden area in Buhera, a home for humanity that comes out of a very poor homestead. Home in Shona means Kumusha. And by connecting to the original culture of that place, to the kombucha spirit in which the umbilical cord of that person, the originating couple of the integral kombucha, was buried originally as children. They transformed this homestead into a flourishing community-based enterprise, now inspiring Zimbabwe as a whole. I can share more about that if people are interested, but the powerful process about how now a simple homestead in an area called poor and downtrodden is inspiring a nation and society. And I think these processes, which we jointly share in uplifting humanity, this is what I feel is vital for us to co-develop. And Jean, you gave us a big stepping stone with social artistry. Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you both. And Rama, Alexander, I understand there are also some youth members with you, right? Who
They are.
Can you bring them in? Because we need more youth. We love to hear their voices and their understanding. Hello, welcome.
Hello there.
So you have both Elif, Dr. Elif Tibet, who made the film that you saw and is an award-winning film.
Oh, brilliant.
Wonderful.
We have Arjuna. We have Kaisa and a couple of others, Sonam, Lotan's son, who is not in the room right here. And Lotan, would you like to say a word about sacred democracy?
Democracy, for me, coming from Turkey, is already a lost entity. We lost it, and maybe we never had it. And living now in Switzerland, every day my favorite place to be is the Bundeshaus. I always sit there and I dream. I look at the parliament and I say, maybe one day I have a chance in there to speak. And for me, participatory democracy doesn't mean, it means a lot about different voices. And even if we don't belong, that we should be able to participate, like myself, a migrant in Switzerland. And this is kind of my vision. And I'm very inspired through your talks. It was beautiful. And I really want to follow what will evolve out of this Agora and the sacred democracy that you're bringing in as a new paradigm shift. I'm all there with you and for you.
And she's a core part of Home for Humanity.
She made the movie that you also, the video clip of the Humanity Charter, just an extra addition. My name is Arjuna, and it's amazing. Thank you so much, everyone who has participated now. It's been so inspiring to sit here, so charged. The only small comment I will add is that for me, it is so important, this space, a space of listening, so that everyone has the opportunity to be who they are and to be accepted and to be listened as that. And this is what we should be creating, and this is what I'm trying to do in my life, in my work. Yeah, thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Kaisa, and I'm sitting here in awe, just listening to all of you and trying to integrate all of your wisdom. And when I think of democracy, I also think of this participation, of course. And what I feel is missing in Sweden, where I've grown up, is for young people to really hear these things which you are saying and evoke that energy of participating in society. I feel that is very lost in my generation, and that to be part of these circles is so important for us as young people to really evoke that that energy within us, to be guided by you and all of that, you know, all your knowledge, and that's my spontaneous thoughts.
Would you like to also hear Lotan, who's been an activist for a sacred activist for democracy?
Please come. Especially after that such powerful invocation you did. Yes, please.
No, but
please. Sacred democracy.
Sacred democracy.
As a youth voice.
Yeah, sacred democracy. Because I heard this term just maybe an hour ago, the word sacred democracy, when you were saying. So I was saying to myself, wow, what a nice terminology, a term, what a nice, because I think that, I always say, of course, as you introduced me as a Tibetan activist, but I always say that if Tibet was free today, I would be today an animal activist for the welfare of the animal beings. And as a Buddhist, we believe that all human beings, all beings on this earth, not only human beings, but every being on this earth has equal right. So at the moment, I'm only limited ostensibly, outwardly to Tibet, but my heart, not only when I fight for Tibet, I also fight for the Palestinians, indirectly. I fight for all the Uyghurs, for every person who are oppressed on this earth. But coming back to the word sacred democracy, is that I felt it so nice because we need democracy not for the human being, not only for the human beings, but for all other beings, animals, who suffer so much because of human arrogance. So we need to have democracy which extends to all beings on this earth. That's only what I want to say. So please work on that.
Thank you.
Yes. Thank you so much. My goodness, really, it's a matter of overflowing here. I'm sure that others are feeling this as well, but there's this sense of being part of this new narrative, and it's an ancient narrative as well. It's not necessarily a new one. This is the quest of Rose that Anneloes and Jean have also written about. This is the exploration that we are co-authoring together here. This is what the Earth Agora is about. This is about our home for humanity. And there's so much inspiration and aspiration here for us. And I'm not speaking just about me trying to get a beard here like Lanka has. I'm working on it. But the things that I think we are participating in here in co-creating are setting the stage as well for the next things we're going to be doing today and tomorrow. So I just want to invite everyone to stay tuned, because what we are doing now is really co-creating this big experiment of how to be the systems we wish to see in the world, how to human well together. And I just want to give a shout out to the audience here. We have a participant in the audience by the name of Laszlo, who is with us. I see him there on his camera. And I just want to see if he might have anything he wants to share with us. And if you do, please feel free to turn on your mic.
Well, I'm full of awe and admiration for what is going on here. This is exactly the recipe, the way to change the world by creating local initiatives out on the periphery, perhaps, which can grow, nucleate, come together, and then change the entire system. There's this small group that Margaret Mead, who should be very familiar, of course, to Jean, said that can change the world. You can change the world. You can create a new culture. And a new culture means a new paradigm, a new way of thinking, new way of feeling, perceiving ourselves, not individuals fighting against each other for limited privileges, but individuals who make an organic part of a larger whole, of which are essential elements. Being together, yes. You are putting that into practice. This is the kind of initiative that we need. That's the way to change the world. And the world is badly in need of change right now. You have the key. This kind of local cultural group growing up, evolving, joining together, holding hands, that is the way forward. Then we won't go down on history, we'll go up to the next level of our evolution. I'm full of appreciation and love for what you're doing.
Thank you so much. Well, indeed, we are holding hands, and we have the group there with Rama and Alexander all holding hands, and this is across time and space, and this is the beauty also of what we're understanding, that we truly are not just entangled, but as Theodore Nelson Holmes wrote about in the 1970s, he says we're intertwingled, and I love that word, intertwingled, which is really the same concept as entanglement, but it's at the human scale, how we are intertwingling. There's magic to it as well. So I want to just turn it back quickly for any closing remarks from anyone on our panel, from Youssef or Jean or Alexander or Rama, and then we will wrap up for this for the first session, and tell you a little bit about the next two sessions that are coming still today. Anyone would like to share any closing reflection?
I saw there was one question to us saying, how do we practice intimate community over here? And I was reminded in the beautiful quotation Jean read from Jean and Anneloes' book, she mentioned a world we call home, which reminded me of the line in the Chandogya Upanishad, which we loved here, which says, those who realize all life is one, see themselves in everyone, and are at home everywhere. And the only practice we have is that the moment someone steps in the door, they are family. Every animal, every being, and we have with us here, people who can communicate as well with nature beings and spirits, with other realms, but everyone is family. There's never been the same group of people twice in this home, but everyone has felt family from the moment they step in. And every home for humanity that we collaborate with across the planet, especially in countries in crisis, in war zones, that's exactly the feeling when you step in. And that's where creativity, creating the new paradigm, creating the new systems becomes possible, because you're seeing the whole, feeling responsible for the whole, and feeling so creatively called forward to create that new.
Building on Rama, and as our mic is open, I will continue. I also want to leave Youssef and Jean the final word. But what I would like to bring our attention and awareness to is this very moment in which we are, to my mind, co-creating and weaving the future. This is for me a living learning space of which we need plenty, and we need to evolve these. On our side, we are bringing these homes for humanity, which are now existing on all continents, together into what we call an Earth campus, because the existing university and learning or educational paradigms are not serving the purpose that we are evoking at the moment, or only in very rare occasions. And we want to step up all together to create an alternative space, as so many of us do, of co-learning, co-igniting, co-envisioning, and co-practicing the future to become, in Jean's and Anneloes' terms, the future human, which is so desperately waiting to be born within ourselves. Thank you.
Go ahead, Jean. It's all yours.
I'm reminded of recent, not just speculations, but in fact affirmations coming from some of the leaders in the quantum physics, which strongly suggests that time past, time present, and time future are actually simultaneous in ways with our little arrow of time way we don't understand. And in this simultaneity, there is another level that is extraordinary, which also says that we are coded with some of this future time, not just a future time, because obviously there are many different kinds, and that many people are waking up from serious dreams with the understanding that they have the coding, just as when we were that little tiny dot, that little tiny fertilized dot, in our very first few seconds of being, that then was coded to create the ongoingness of the full human. I like to think that in times that we're in, which are always Renaissance times, rinascere, new birth, we're coming, that our codes, our future codes, that gave us our whole body-mind system is also awakening, and is awakening for the whole human race right now. And what I am seeing in this magnificent conference is the waker-uppers who are also going around and shaking us. Come on, wake up. You're not an encapsulated bag of skin, dragging around a little stupid ego. You are not the latest product of the metabolism of the galaxy. You are a person on the forefront of an awakening that will make all the difference if you dare not just to rise, but to interact with so many other risers to enter the great divine harmony of co-creation. It's all there for us.
Wonderful. What do I have left to say? Except perhaps bring up an additional advice that peace gave me that I didn't have the time to share with you because there was only so much we could do in such a limited time. What peace has added is that in our endeavor as awakened human beings, as we look towards the future that is dawning, we must practice the art and craft of listening. Deep listening. Listening with the intent to understand, not with the intent to help solve or quicken the arrival of the future. So we don't miss those codes that Jean was talking about. And unawareingly leave room for the viruses of the dying system to unwittingly mine our journey towards that future we wish to co-create. So I just want to leave that with you, listening with the intent to understand, suspending all judgment and preconceptions. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Anneloes, we are at time. Do you want to say anything? And then I will let people know about the next session and we'll take a half-an-hour break. Anneloes.
Yes, my gratitude. I speak with silence. It is so profound. I'm so grateful to our panels. I'm so glad also, Earth, that you joined us for these minutes. Just gratitude. Thank you.
Thank you, Anneloes. And what a pleasure. I'd like to high-five you because what a pleasure it is to dance this with you and to just co-create. I think we are also doing that. It's just, it really is joy singing in my heart, as they say, honey in your heart. This, by the way, now, if we take half-an-hour break, please do refresh, come back at the top of the hour. We're going to actually experience the next session as a process engagement, not so much content, but we're going to explore what does it mean to shift consciousness? How does that happen? And we have a group of leaders of networks that span the globe coming together to explore this process of emerging, perhaps, an interbeing. How do we do that? So come join the experiment. And if you want to see the schedule, I put it right here in the chat. You can go to that link and you'll see where we are coming up. And we'll see you back here in half an hour. A big thanks to everyone for being here and especially to our brilliant, brilliant panel. Thanks again. See you in half an hour.